Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Curtis, and today I want to talk about episode 2 of She the People. The episode begins with Antoinette. She's in her room giving herself affirmations, and she's also listening to every woman. We switch over to the living room area, and we actually see Cleo come in, and she's greeted by Titus, but she is ignored by Lola. Titus tells her that Lola's phone was taken away by Antoinette, and then Lola, she begins to complain about, not having her phone and life without it. And then Cleo, she pretty much tells her that, back in the day, she used to have to yell down the street to get her friend's attention. And which Lola pretty much says, well, back then you also didn't have cars. Cleo, she attempts to choke her, but she ends up running away. Shamika comes in just in time, and Lola actually hides behind her. And Shamika basically says, just apologize to her, and which she does, right? After this, she inquires about, Antoinette and where she's at. And he tells her that she's in the room, she's listening to every woman. And they also tell Shamika, that's the song that she used to listen to every day after the divorce. So Shamika's like, oh no, I need to go in there and try to figure out what's going on. When Shamika actually goes into the room, she has a brief conversation with Antoinette. And Antoinette says that, she doesn't really feel like every woman at this point. She just feels like a woman who is overwhelmed. She then goes on to say that, she's nervous, that, she will not be accepted by the governor. Shamika, she tries to give her a motivational speech, but it really doesn't work. Antoinette does not understand why she is not happy. She just won the election, yet she doesn't feel as if she should have won, or she just lacks the confidence needed for this type of position. While they are talking, Cleo comes in and she basically tells her, look, the pity party is over. It's been going on too long and she needs to hurry up and get ready so they can go meet the governor and just pretty much get it over with. And she also jokes about, needing to get out of her girdle and her bra. Cleo then says, that she is concerned that the governor may not be too fond of us, or maybe just not too familiar with us because maybe the governor wasn't really around us too much. And when I say us, you know exactly what I mean. And then after this, Cleo, she brings up the fact that Antoinette used to get bullied. And this part was actually kind of funny to me, I can't lie. And so Antoinette, she was getting bullied when she was younger. And her mom, Cleo, she didn't step in and do anything because the little girl that was bullying Antoinette is actually the daughter of the man that she was creeping around with. And so she was actually messing with a married man back in the day. And it just so happened that his daughter was the one that was bullying Antoinette. I did think that was kind of funny. I can't even lie. But after this, Cleo, she redirects the conversation and tells her, basically, you earned a spot. You won. You are going to be the lieutenant governor and that everything's going to be okay. And Antoinette, that actually gets her going. She's like, you know what? You're right. I am the lieutenant governor. Let's do this. After that conversation, everyone goes outside and we see Basil, and he's in this bright orange suit. And Antoinette basically says, she wants him to change it to something more professional, but Basil wants to wear his bright orange suit. Shamika, she's in agreement with Basil, but of course that's because they are in a relationship, so of course she's going to support her man. Antoinette offers to drive, but Basil ends up driving, and he actually ends up leaving Cleo and the kids by accident. He actually ends up going back and getting them before dropping them off at the Capitol. Antoinette, Shamika, Cleo, Titus, and Lola are greeted by one of the governor's employees, Estelle, who is super, and when I say super excited, she is extremely excited to meet Antoinette and her family. Estelle then leads them to the steps where they are greeted by Governor Harper and his staff. Lola notices that there are pictures of people, basically, slaves doing things that slaves used to do back in the day. Antoinette tries to get her to be quiet, but she continues to talk. The governor laughs it off and jokes, about Antoinette punching the guy in the face that, Lola was with at the party. Cleo then walks up and tells him that she did not vote for him. He tells her that he respects the fact that, she's being honest with him. Shamika then attempts to shake his hand, but he ignores her because he's like, who are you? Basil then comes in and he's hemmed up by security. Shamika lets her know he's with us, he's a part of the team, and they let him go, right? Antoinette, she's upset because she was under the impression that he was going to wait in the car because he's wearing that super bright suit. And she didn't really want him to come in and embarrass her, but of course, he did come in anyways. And he actually tries to shake the governor's hand, and he receives the same exact treatment that Shamika did. Basil then jokes around. He says he looks like he doesn't wash his hand anyways, so he's good on that. The governor then inquires about Basil's job duties, and Basil says, he's Antoinette's driver. The governor tells him that he will no longer be her driver because she will be escorted by state troopers. The governor tells them that he wants to talk to Antoinette alone and asks if she will want some tea. And then this was the part where everybody just like, no, 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 no. She can't have tea. She can't have tea. So I'm not really sure what it is about tea. But everybody pretty much shut it down. So no tea for her. And then, after this, he tells them, make yourselves comfortable. Make yourselves at home. I want to have a conversation with Antoinette. And he ends up calling her Nettie. And then Cleo, she correlates that with Nettie from The Color Purple and feels like he's trying to be funny. He may have been trying to be funny because he was very sarcastic, but they end up walking out, and then the family, they end up staying behind. Inside of the governor's office, the governor and Antoinette talk about politics and the fact that the state allows the governor to be a part, one party, and the lieutenant governor to be a part of another party. And I do think that is a little bit crazy because it's becoming quite clear, he is Republican, she is Democrat, but they are in the office together. So I can see that possibly being a problem, but Antoinette, she basically says, it won't be any issues at all. We will be able to work together to get things done. And he actually questions her about the idea of working together. He goes on to tell her that, the only job that she pretty much has is to sit around and wait for him to die because he is running the show on his own. She tries to convince him that, there are things that she can do, but he is adamant that there are not. He ends up introducing her to the chief of staff and a member of the press before telling her to be a good girl and let him handle everything. He lets her know that there will be a press conference in a few moments. Basil, Titus, and Lola are getting toward the building when a man walks up and jokes about Basil's suit. Basil gets upset but eventually calms down. Estelle offers to get them something to drink, but Basil tells him that he has his own drink. He starts feeling around in his pocket, but he realizes that he left it in the car. He ends up leaving the group to go get the drink. When he comes back, he sits down on the bench and he overhears the guy that was talking about his suit, talking about Antoinette, and talking about how he wants to get her out of the office as soon as possible. Basil ends up confronting them. They lie and tell him that, it's just banter. Basil ends up threatening them and walks away. The scene then switches back to Antoinette, who goes into her office for the first time. She's then introduced to her new assistant, Jenna. Antoinette, she's confused about this because she thought that she'd be able to pick her own staff. She is then informed that the governor actually chose her staff for her. And one of the main reasons why he did that is because it appears that Basil and Shamika may have some criminal records. So Basil, he does have a criminal record, and Shamika, it appears that she may have a warrant in Mexico. She ends up telling the guy that she plans to bring in her own people, and she plans to have them fully vetted and try to have them a part of her staff. But the guy, he's not really feeling it. He's like, no, the governor has already made the decision, and this is how we're going to do this. The guy, whose name is Henry, by the way, goes on to tell her that it will probably be best if she doesn't make any waves right now and that she just needs to go with the flow. Antoinette fears that her assistant will not be as loyal to her as she is to the governor, right? Because, she was chosen, she was picked by the governor, so therefore her loyalty is going to be towards him opposed to being towards her. And so therefore she would prefer if she can have Shamika and she can have Basil around so she can know that she has somebody who, has her back. The guy, Henry, he basically says, don't worry about it. But Antoinette is like, no, I want to pick my own staff. And she actually says, you know what? How about I go to the governor and let the governor know? And when Henry is like, no, you can't do that. You have to schedule appointments. You can't just walk in there, right? And then at this point, Estelle, she walks into the office and she has Shamika, Lola, Basil, and Titus. Antoinette tells them that the governor is trying to choose her staff. And this actually causes a small back and forth between Antoinette and Shamika because Shamika feels like she's being pushed out. Antoinette, she tries to smooth it over, but unfortunately, Shamika, she's not having it. And Basil, he actually believes the same thing because he's like, I was already told that I'm not going to be your driver, so what exactly am I going to do, right? And then, like I said, she tries to reason with them, but unfortunately it doesn't work, and Shamika and Basil both quit. And that's actually the end of the episode. And I must say, I felt like this episode was not as strong, and that's not really saying much, as the previous episode. I personally felt like this episode, it really wasn't good. The acting wasn't really that great. The camera angles were not that great. It did not necessarily flow that well. I felt like there were a lot of jokes that were inserted into the conversation that really wasn't needed. If I can give it a rating out of 10, I will give it a 1 out of 10. I'm trying to, stick through it because, like I said, Terry Vaughn, she is one of my favorite actresses. I think she is hilarious. And to be honest, I feel like she's really doing a good job and she's trying as hard as she can. But I do not think that she is enough to save this show, because the plot itself is good, but the acting of everyone else, the script, it's just not connecting to me. Because the thing about Tyler is that Tyler has a formula that he likes to use on basically all of his shows. And so as soon as you start watching it, you kind of already know how things are going to go. And you already know that with his shows, he's going to insert some random comedic things, which is not necessarily that funny. So, for example, when Antoinette was having a conversation with Shamika earlier, and, she was talking about she doesn't feel like every woman and how she is, nervous. Cleo barges into the room and she starts talking about how she needs to get out of her bra and girdle. And then her and Shamika go back and forth about the name of it, if it's actually a girdle or not. It's like, it's not really necessary or needed for this show, but it's something that he likes to incorporate into his shows. And I guess I can't be mad at it because that's his formula, but it just doesn't necessarily work for me. I am going to review, episode 3. I am hopeful that episode will be better. If it's not, I'm probably going to drop this show. Or what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make it to episode 4. So that way I can at least do half of it. And then I will drop it. And then I will go on to review something else. All right. But I really do appreciate you all watching this video. If you could, please like the video. Leave a comment. Let me know how you felt about it. And then also, let me know how you feel about the season. I will really appreciate it. And that's all I got. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Y'all take care.